Last time, we talked about 5 major events that happened in China in 2023, and we couldn't cover them all in one episode. So today, we'll continue with the rest of the story. We last discussed the financial shortages in many parts of China, where even the salaries of civil servants are not being paid. There are many reasons for this financial scarcity at the local level. One significant reason is the decline in revenue from land finance, a critical issue in the real estate sector. This brings us to the 6th major event in China that we're discussing today, the real estate crisis. House prices in China have been falling collectively. This decline didn't start this year. In some places it began as early as 2019, but this year it seems to be a general trend in all cities. In this context, Chinese real estate companies started experiencing large-scale defaults. The biggest of them this year was Evergrande, the former real estate giant. In August 2023, Evergrande filed for bankruptcy in the US, pushing this already struggling giant back into the spotlight. Soon after, several senior executives, including owner Xu Jiayin, were arrested. Other real estate giants like Country Garden and Sunac are now on the brink of bankruptcy. Now let's talk about Liang Liang and Li Jun, a couple who became sensational figures due to these real estate issues. They started as TikTok creators, and after much hard work, managed to make a down payment on a house in Zhengzhou. But their happy life was disrupted when they bought an unfinished project from Sunac, leading them on a difficult journey of rights defense. They clashed with Sunac several times, and their plight gained significant attention, especially when the government silenced them and they planned to return to their hometown. Commentator Ma Dugong said that Liang Liang and Li Jun are a microcosm of ordinary Chinese people. But their story took a dramatic turn when they abandoned their return home to start independent entrepreneurship, a move that bewildered their followers. Lastly, the real estate issue impacts more than just real estate companies and middle-class buyers. It's also brought financial systemic risks, affecting entities like the Zhongzhi Group, a major trust company in China. Zhongzhi Group, with a capital scale of $3 trillion USD, declared technical bankruptcy due to these issues, leaving many investors unable to redeem their investments and starting their own rights defense journey. In China, defending rights is not limited to the poor. It belongs to every social class. We'll keep following these stories and bring you the latest updates. Faced with economic difficulties, China's approach in foreign affairs has also undergone changes. This leads us to the 8th major event of the year, the weakening of wolf warrior diplomacy. At the beginning of this year, China's wolf warrior diplomacy peaked, with the most influential event being the balloon incident in early February. On February 1st, 2023, the US reported an unidentified balloon suspected to be a Chinese surveillance balloon flying over from Canada into US airspace. More such balloons were discovered later. The West raised serious objections, while China insisted the balloon was for civilian use and had drifted off course due to uncontrollable factors. After 3 months of investigation, the Wall Street Journal revealed that the US had confirmed the balloon was indeed used for espionage. During the initial phase of the balloon incident, when China's economy was not as strained, China took a very tough stance, reaching a peak in wolf warrior diplomacy and worsening relations with the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, even cancelled his planned trip to China. But the situation quickly changed as economic pressures in China grew. 2 major events occurred later in the year. First, to ease relations with Europe, Xi Jinping invited Emmanuel Macron to visit China on April 12th. Despite high-profile coverage of the visit, it didn't significantly ease China-EU relations. By the end of the year, the EU-China talks were not smooth, and Italy announced its withdrawal from China's Belt and Road Initiative. Secondly, to improve relations with the US, Xi Jinping made a rare visit and met with President Biden. This led to a brief pro-US sentiment on Chinese social media. While China-US relations have eased somewhat since the balloon incident, the improvement is limited. Nevertheless, the second half of the year saw a shift in China's foreign policy, with Xi Jinping's previously unyielding stance towards the US showing signs of change due to economic pressures. This year's events have shown how internal economic challenges can influence a country's approach to foreign policy and diplomacy. Facing economic downturns, the central government's control over society has intensified. This brings us to the 9th major event of 2023, the strengthening of speech control and the rise of textual prisons. China's control over speech is an annual occurrence, but this year, the restrictions on freedom of speech have tightened further. A representative event of this year is the early incident involving the comedy show Xiaoguo. In May, Xiaoguo launched a North American tour. One of their comedians, Li Haoshi, House, during a performance on May 13th, told a story about adopting 2 wild dogs. He joked that unlike other cute and dumb-looking dogs, these 2 dogs loved chasing squirrels, reminding him of the 8-character motto, "Good style, able to win wars." Although Xiaoguo Culture asked all audience members to surrender their phones before the show, the segment still leaked. The joke was seen as a mockery of the People's Liberation Army, leading to a severe crackdown on Xiaoguo Culture by the party. Li Haoshi was investigated. Xiaoguo Culture was indefinitely suspended from all performances and fined 13 million yuan. Some argued that this was an offense against the PLA, but such satire is normal in the West, and stand-up comedy is an art of offense. This overreaction to an overseas performance indicates a further decline in freedom of speech in China. By the end of the year, the State Security Department suddenly stepped up efforts, releasing statements over 3 consecutive days, equating discussions that criticized China's economy with endangering national security, essentially linking economic criticism to anti-party and treasonous activities. Several well-known Chinese official economists on social media were banned. Now, even criticizing the economy is a luxury, indicating a further shrinkage of the space for freedom of speech. These developments paint a concerning picture of the state of freedom of expression in China, as economic critiques and humor are increasingly viewed through a lens of national security. Finally, let's discuss the 10th category of events: miscellaneous incidents. These are assorted events that are hard to categorize but are worth remembering from 2023. First is the Zhuozhou flood in August. Beijing experienced its strongest rainfall in 140 years, affecting Mentugu and then Hebei. Normally, this natural disaster would be just another event, but it sparked anger because it was discovered that the flooding in Zhuozhou was due to flood discharge to protect Beijing and Xi Jinping's cherished Xiong'an New Area, making many in Hebei sacrificial pawns. This understandably caused much public outrage. Additionally, Xi Jinping's absence in the disaster areas also drew criticism. In the same month, Japan decided to start releasing nuclear wastewater from the Fukushima plant, leading to an anti-Japanese wave online in China. Numerous patriotic bloggers exaggerated the dangers of the wastewater, and the Chinese government banned imports of Japanese seafood. However, it's clear that the Chinese government orchestrated this wave of sentiment. I've discussed this on YouTube, explaining the science behind it. Soon we'll see whether those avoiding Japanese seafood will also avoid Chinese seafood, as the wastewater is expected to reach Chinese shores soon. Another notable event is about Huawei's Kirin chip. In September, Huawei released the Kirin 9000S chip, rumored to be 14 nanometers technology and to be used in the Mate 60, leading many to think that China's chip industry had made a huge breakthrough. But 3 months later, details about the chip remain a mystery. Even during the Mate 60 launch, Huawei didn't mention any details about the chip. We still don't know its yield rate, manufacturing process, cost or performance, making the Kirin 9000S a mysterious chip. Of course, there were other events this year, like the BMW ice cream incident, Liu She's controversial statements, and the Hong Kong Airlines insult to China incident, among others. But they don't carry the same weight as the ones I've mentioned, so I won't go into detail here. These events, whether big or small, shape our understanding of China's current state and its interaction with the world. After discussing the major events of the year, let's conclude. Compared to last year, there have been so many significant events in China that it's impossible to list just 10. What lies behind these events? They are the hardships of the Chinese people. Little Pink often accused me of deliberately slandering China, but honestly, I can't think of any good events that happened in China this year. Only disasters come to mind. Recently, the Chinese government announced its words of the year. Domestically, it's Zhen, invigorate, internationally, Wei, danger, and for China, high-quality development. This seems contrary to common sense. I don't see where China was invigorated this year. If you ask me, the word of the year for China should be disappointment. Many Chinese people had high hopes at the beginning of the year, expecting economic improvement and a better life with the pandemic easing. But contrary to expectations, the recovery lasted only 3 months, with soaring youth unemployment, falling house prices, and further decline in freedoms. Life didn't get better but became harder, something many didn't foresee. So I describe this year in China as disappointing. Why not tragic or miserable? Because I believe we haven't reached the point of utter despair yet. This year's troubles have been many, and it's almost certain that next year will bring more, potentially making this year seem like the best of the next decade. Although the outlook isn't optimistic, and the expectations for next year aren't great, I still want to extend my early wishes to all my viewers. I hope everyone has a happier and better life in 2024. For more insights into China and global developments, make sure to follow our channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our video. Here's to a hopeful and brighter 2024.